Welcome to RuralStrong, where we talk real challenges and bold solutions in rural economic development. I'm your host, Joe Barker. Let's get into it. Welcome to RuralStrong. This is your podcast host, Joe Barker, and we're broadcasting today from the Southwest Tennessee Development District podcast studio in beautiful downtown Jackson, Tennessee. And once again, we've got the dynamic duo with us today, as is our regular podcast on the first Monday of each month. We've got the co-founders of Savior Town, Becky McCray and Deb Brown. Ladies, how are you?
We are doing well. Thank you so much for hosting us again. We love doing this podcast.
Good to see you, Joe. We're doing fine.
Well, that check you get every month really helps pay expenses, doesn't
it? Becky, you've been holding out on me?
What? No, I don't know.
I noticed there were crickets on the other end for a second, like it was lost in the mail or something. Okay, we've got a subject we're going to talk about today that I know you ladies are really into doing surveys, and I think it has skyrocketed up your list on importance. And I know in the job I'm in, when we talk about economic development and recruiting jobs, this subject has risen on that list very quickly, and that is child care. And really the lack of child care is something that all of our communities are faced with. And I think particularly our rural communities where, we had COVID and a lot of the child care facilities shut down during COVID. And I can tell you in our general area that a large percentage of those child care operations never opened back up. So we had a shortage, had COVID, and now it is really a critical issue with us. So let's start it off and get your thoughts on child care and let's relate it to economic development. How important is availability of child care in economic development?
Well, Joe, it goes hand in hand with workforce development, with housing and child care. Those three things you have to have, all three of them. And if you don't, you're at a loss. In child care, there's no one to take care of my kids near me. I can't move to your community.
Well, and if you can't move to the community, you can't have a job. And,
right. The number of people that fall out of the workforce because they've lost childcare, these are people that could be productive employees, but they've lost childcare, and so now they're staying out. We're also seeing, and I don't think that employers think about this enough, and economic development needs to think about it. People drive a long way to nearby towns for childcare. When there's not enough care in your town and there's a deficit, then people are driving half an hour one way to drop their kids off and then going to work. And then after work, or maybe even needing to leave work sooner in order to go pick up kids. And this affects employers. And so it is in their best interest to make sure that care is available closer to them to help cut down those driving hours that are just really cutting into people's lives, as well as their productivity as employees.
Well, and another thing is the cost. If you can find child care, and it's the cost because you work to pay child care. And so that doesn't balance out real well if you're trying to get ahead and pay your bills. So, it's just we're caught between a rock and a hard place. So what are some things y'all have seen, maybe some communities that have maybe taken a unique approach to child care?
Well, one of my favorites is in Laverne, Oklahoma. It's intergenerational childcare. The locals got together a couple of years ago, and they created this new senior living facility / nursing home. And then a few years later, they just realized they weren't using all their rooms. So why not open the vacant rooms to a new daycare provider? So what that does, everybody benefits from sharing those facilities, like the kitchen as well. That's all part of it. Plus, the seniors and the toddlers Well, they get to interact with each other in things, in the activities and readings and crafts. It's great to have a couple of extra grandmas and grandpas, I think.
I like that. You have that social interaction with the seniors and the children, and that's a win-win for everyone.
It is. And, when I actually saw the photos from my friend Lana Schaefer, who's from Laverne, when she shared that with me, like we went and looked at some of the pictures from the park view where the pals, which are the little kids, are interacting with the Parkview seniors. They're like painting rocks to make a rock snake out in the yard, and they're just doing their trick or treating, right? Just wonderful, sweet, heartwarming interactions between the generations there. And another model that we wanted to share with you is called the pod model, or sometimes people call it the hub model. And this is where you take one building and you share it. Instead of between intergenerational, you just share it between daycare providers. So you have multiple childcare providers operating out of the same building. So then again, they're sharing those resources like that kitchen that's up to health department standards and restrooms that are enough for the available people. And one of those that I heard about is from New Ulm, Minnesota, this is kind of a bigger town. Laverne's only like 1,400 people. New Ulm is like 14,000. But their economic development authority took the lead on this. They went and found the building. They bought the building. The Economic Development Authority remodeled the building. And so now they have 4 different rooms for the different childcare providers, each one with their own room and the shared facilities together. And they were planning to do less than market rates because they wanted this to be an incentive, because they considered this an important thing to incentivize in their community, childcare, for all the workforce reasons we just talked about. And so while grants and donations covered about 10% of the cost, the economic development leaders stepped up for the rest of that cost because they felt like it was a good investment in their community's future.
One of the organizations that we see that has become really involved in childcare, and I was told the other day, now I haven't done the research on this, that they are probably the largest organization in the country right now that has become involved in providing childcare, and that is the YMCA. And they have become, I know in our area in Tennessee, very active in going into communities, partnering with the local community, and establishing child care facilities. Are y'all seeing that in areas of the country where you live?
Yes, in my area, I'm seeing YMCA where it exists, which is bigger small towns, and YWCAs as well. And there's then I think about smaller towns, that don't have those anchors. There's a lot of other anchor institutions that exist almost anywhere. Like almost all of us have churches with buildings that have some space available that maybe could be rented out or, time shared with a daycare provider entrepreneur. Or you have a lot of businesses that are already offering in-house programs. And so while an in-house program may not benefit other businesses, it also does benefit that's a partner that you can connect with for training and for sharing resources. And it also is kind of like a workforce incubator in that you can arrange for internships, or that you can make sure that people go there and get additional training and then go out and purchase and our workforce available for other providers. And the other one that I'm seeing a lot, and this is all over the country, are schools. Schools are building daycare into their plans. And so this may take, I hear from school districts that they are in the multi-year planning process of adding preschool age kids to their program because they have buildings, facilities, and know how to run these things. And also because it's important for the community and their own workforce. So that's one that you want to definitely be having a conversation with your local schools to find out if they've already got something like this in mind.
In community, go ahead, Deb.
My niece works at a daycare that's funded by the local Christian churches in the community. and they have their own standalone business. So they figured out how to get together and make that happen. And they're looking at expanding. And it's in a town of 4,000 people. It's not very big, but people are driving from half an hour away to take advantage of this larger daycare.
And the other thing I'm seeing is, and particularly in larger companies, if they locate in your general area, many times they are adding childcare to their facility so that they can attract employees. I know Tyson Foods a few years ago built a new facility in our region, and they were sort of the pioneer in this, was adding child care to that facility. I know the Ford Motor Company that has announced a plant in our region is actually partnering with the YMCA to build a child care facility for their employees. So are you seeing this trend really all across the country?
Yeah. Again, those are a little bit larger towns, Joe. In the smaller towns where we find ourselves in the 2,000, 3,000, not so much, because there aren't larger manufacturers there.
Right.
We
no
do
Ford
hear
plant
this,
in the town of 200 to 2,000.
Well, let me tell you, this Ford plant located adjacent to a community that has less than 500 residents. Now,
love it.
They're bringing a lot of employees in, and that's their, is to provide child care. But I just think as economic developers in general, when we talk to these companies, I think it's worth the conversation if it hasn't already come up about, have you thought about child care?
Yeah.
Well, and you know what? Economic developers, you may not think about it, but you already have incentives and programs that you could use better. For example, McCook, Nebraska, now that's another small one, 7,000 people. They designated their early childhood programs as qualifying businesses for their entrepreneurship training and incentives. Coming right out of economic development. That makes sense to me. They started promoting actively online entrepreneurship training for people who wanted to start or expand their child care businesses. Child care is more than just child care. It's small business too. And you can figure out with your current incentives in place how to better use them. My thought.
Yeah. Yeah. We are hearing about in-house programs more often just because there's not current availability in the community. And I think that there can be some backlash to that from within the community, as in, well, that's fine for you, but what are we going to do with our kids? We don't have a place for our kids to go, especially. So I think that when you do speak with employers about doing an in-house program, or they're already proposing it, or you've proposed it to them, make sure that you're also having that conversation with your community about how that becomes an additional resource. Even though that's not an open slot that somebody outside can use, it's freeing up pressure, right? Like that will relieve some of the shortage pressure by making sure that with those in-house daycare slots, then they're not taking up spaces in the community, as well as then partnering with them. They're going to have to provide training and resources to their people. Then let's see if we can't make sure that that training, those ongoing training hours that all child care providers need, can we not partner on those so that providers from the community take advantage of the same trainings? And you can carry that a step further. And one way to do that is by supporting meetups, because the child care providers themselves are resource people in your community, whether they work in an in-house center or they're running their own center or they're working from their own home. These are all people who are entrepreneurs, who are running a business, who are largely figuring it out for themselves right now. And they're having to figure out some really complex programs. If you've ever looked at your state's nutrition supplement program for a child care business, that's some complicated paperwork. That is an extremely complex program, and that's just one of a dozen programs they have to navigate. letting them get together in meetups that they organize themselves lets them ask each other, hey, what are you doing with a nutrition program? How did you answer question 7 on this survey? And they can share resources. Hey, I have too many puzzles. Does anybody need some? And you think I'm making this up, but this is a real story. My own sister-in-law started a grassroots group like this in our hometown of Alva, Oklahoma, a few years ago. She had a building. They started doing meetups at her building. It was so incredibly successful. First of all, the child care providers felt so seen and supported, like somebody else is going through this too. It's not just me. And they called themselves Helping Hands Daycare Provider Network because they felt like they were helping each other as well as helping the kids. So they did the trainings and speakings. But I think the key thing here is this becomes a resource then. What do economic developers care about this? You can help support making something like that happen, suggest it, and then offer some support to it. But then that becomes a place where you can find the providers at a day and time they've organized themselves. So if you have a service that you want to make sure they know about, do you know about our entrepreneurship training? Do you know about our business loans? Do you know about our incentives? You can find them there because they're meeting up at that day and time. So if you have a corporation looking at doing an in-house program when they come in, make sure they know that you expect them to partner with your existing programs and provide better support across the board for the whole community and not just selfishly keeping it to themselves.
Yeah, it's all a part of tearing down silos in my mind. As economic developers, absolutely you should be working with daycare providers. And you may never have thought to do that. And another natural partner is the extension. Oh my God, they know everything. They know early childhood and small business and nutrition. And if you're not inviting them to be more involved with your work, well, it's a good time to start. For sure. I just found out that Mississippi State University Extension, they have this initiative where they help educate and train daycare providers at no charge. And then they earn a Child Development Associate certificate. So it's all extension based. They have figured out what's important in their small towns and the rural communities and make it possible for these new businesses, these new entrepreneurs to be properly trained and have available assistance when they need it down the road too.
What I've seen in Tennessee, and I would suppose other states are doing the same thing, particularly again since COVID, the Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development has got very involved in promoting child care, and they have grants available where people can apply for these grants and particularly in-home child care, and they help them buy equipment and things like this, playground equipment for these children, and there are grants available. And then the other thing they're doing, and you've mentioned it, is helping them to get licensed because that, as you said, is a pretty arduous process. And so there's steps being taken now that I've not seen before to try to assist those folks that want to get in the child care business.
Joe, this is an opportunity for economic developers to work a little bit better with your nonprofit organizations. I tell this story a lot because I really like it. At one of our coffee and calendars, we had Building Families speak up about, hey, did you know that we have some funding and we're training in-home daycare providers, helping them get licensed, and we're paying for it. If we had not gathered together as nonprofit people, we wouldn't have known that. That's just something we wouldn't have known. So as an economic developer, reach out to everybody in your community. Start networking. Start working together and see how you can best serve each other.
Yeah, and sometimes I think our local leaders, where it's local elected officials or whoever, many times don't realize the importance of child care and what a plus it is to that community to be able to offer affordable child care. And I just wish more of these leaders would get involved in that process because to me, today, it's almost as important as water and sewer. You've got to have the infrastructure, and child care is part of that infrastructure.
Absolutely.
This is a complete turnaround from just a few years ago when most economic developers would have kind of looked at you a little blankly if you started talking about childcare, especially pre-COVID, I would think. That I don't remember it coming up in discussions the way that it has since then. And I think increasingly economic developers see it because you hear it from companies and from your workforce. But I also think about your point about how do we help other local elected officials think about this so that they want to help prioritize it. And one piece is go back to all those community partners that we've talked about, whether that's your extension, your YMCA, if it's your churches, if it's your daycare providers themselves. If you want to, when you reach out to them and your employers and get their stories and take those to the local elected officials, that's your ammunition. The other thing that I'll say, and we may be pushing a little bit close to talking about people in a stereotype sort of way, but if we had more women who were elected officials and on boards, women who have struggled to take care of child care questions, then I think that would also influence how well our local elected officials respond to that, because it's one thing to see it secondhand, and it's a different thing if they're the ones that have stayed up nights worrying about what they were going to do tomorrow. So I think that's my pitch for let's step up and run for office. Let's get out there and campaign and let's help influence the future of policy on this question.
Women are taking over the world. We all understand that. You don't have to get off on that.
That's about time, Joe.
That's right. It's about time. Well, and I think you've gone over some of the basic steps, Becky, but we have a lot of, I guess you would call them child care deserts out there, and particularly in our rural communities. And if we've got a listener and they say, amen, we need to do something about this, sort of go through again, what would be some basic steps to really put the process in motion to see, number one, who and what may be available out there to support child care?
You bet. We can definitely go over those. I'm going to borrow a page out of the playbook from the Dane Hansen Community Foundation in Northwest Kansas. They cover a whole lot of territory up there. They have a lot of rural counties up there with not a lot of people. So they have serious sparsity of population. You may have an entire county with only a few thousand people in it and a big county with a lot of miles. So they have an entire program. They have a community innovation center that specifically supports communities trying to start up with child care centers. So their website, the Dane Hansen Community Foundation, and I'll provide that link so that you can share it. They have a lot of resources for communities that are wanting to start up. And actually, one of my college classmates, Dana Stanton, works for them and is incredibly generous about helping people who are trying to get started up. Even if they're not in her territory, she'll be glad to help provide resources that she can. But one of the first things they do is they find people who are already really vitally interested in this. And if that's you, then you're the starting point. You find one more person who's interested and y'all start talking about it. So go for coffee, go get a cool drink and sit down and talk about what's available and build your network out from there. So this is a very idea-friendly approach of gathering your crowd, who else is interested in it. And then you're building connections. Who else knows more about this? Where can we go find more information? And then you're taking small steps. And that first small step may be having that public conversation. So convening, like getting into that really angry Facebook group and going, hey, we're starting to talk positively about getting more childcare and get a positive conversation going in there if you can. It's going to the schools and saying, what do you have planned? Are you already thinking about this? It's asking around, going to the schools and seeing who has, especially younger grades, who are the moms who have younger kids? What do they know? What do the schools already know? Your schools already know a lot. So asking the people who are in your community who they know. Gather your crowd, build your connections, take small steps.
And you could look at locations like your churches. Is there a commercial kitchen in the church? A lot of them have it. Are they doing anything? Well, you don't know if you don't ask. that's part of your network. You can start bringing more folks together. And the small steps lead to solutions to those big challenges.
Well, and I think the other thing is, and this is the political season, and there's all types of forums and gatherings and this type of thing where candidates come in and they tell you they don't tell you how they're going to do it, but they're all going to create jobs and they're going to improve the infrastructure. But I believe they should be pressed on the child care issue about what their thoughts are on child care, just to make them know from the public standpoint how important it is.
I love this. This is kind of a pirate idea to go to the candidate appearances, go to the forums, and then speak up about it, because that's an opportunity. Not only does the candidate hear it, and they need to, but the rest of the community, somebody out of that audience is going to come up to you and go, I am so glad you asked that. I want to talk to you about what we're trying to do. And so you're going to uncover some of those hidden assets of somebody else that's thinking the same thing. And you can't do that by sitting at home going, man, I wish we could figure this out, or sitting in your office and thinking, what are we going to do? When you bring it up publicly, other people have a chance to be attracted to what you are bringing up. So it's not just educating that candidate. It's also putting a flag out there. Hey, let's talk about this issue in our community.
And I want to go back. We've just got a couple of minutes left for this segment, but I really like the idea of the senior center that had the extra rooms to it, and they've already got a lot of the things you need for child care. I think that's a great idea, is that because I know today there's so much talk about the socialization of seniors with children and what it means to both sets of age groups. And I just appreciate y'all bringing that up, because I think as we look around, there's probably situations like that or facilities like that in many of our communities.
It's surprising the number of our senior living and nursing homes that have extra rooms that they can't consistently fill in our small towns. We have a lot of seniors, but for particular reasons, they're not using everything that they've got. By looking at that as an asset instead of a problem, you can bring a new entrepreneur in. You can do it as an in-house, just be as creative as you need to make it work in your community, but you have those assets sitting there. It's expensive to bring a kitchen up to speed for health department regulations and to be safe and serve nutritious food. Well, you're already hiring that for one. They might as well cook for two. So this is a big opportunity that, and I think this is something rural people do. We're kind of creative, and we're also kind of cheap, frugal. We're frugal. And so we know that we've got to stretch every dollar that we have, and using our existing facilities to do two things at the same time is a really smart answer to that.
It's a good way. You could call your extension and have them come train people there. It's a win-win for the people getting trained, for the nursing home, and for the extension, because those are folks that know how to do this stuff.
Well, I appreciate this conversation on child care, because it's highly important. It's highly important to our communities. It's highly important to economic development. And Becky and Deb, you've done your usual great job. And again, to find out more about these ladies, just go to their website, Save Your Town, and they've got all kinds of neat stuff on there. And you can contact them, and it'll be worth your time. We do appreciate everyone tuning in. You can always contact us at RuralStrong@gmail.com. Thanks for joining us on Rural Strong. If you found this helpful, share it, and follow the show for more insights from rural leaders making a real difference. Until next time, stay rural strong.